It's always something nebulous that you can never touch it. But my understanding is that a soul...
Why would you be able to touch something non-physical?
Right. I wouldn't assume such a thing. I wish you wouldn't imply that I had.
So there were 2 points I made. Consciousness is not physical, and I am more than a brain and body. I'm assuming you disagree with both of those. Is that correct?
Of course.
Okay, so if consciousness is physical, you're going to have to demonstrate that every mental state and property is identical to every physical state and property. But if I can show, which I have, that there are mental states and properties that are not reducible or identical to any physical states and properties, it would show that consciousness is not physical. You have mental states and properties that are not identical to anything physical. So something physical is something that can be described purely in the language of chemistry and physics. You cannot do that with conscious states.
I mean, like when you look an immaterial substance, where the two words
so that's
mean
even another thing that's odd. It's almost embarrassing, because for you to say that is for you to show that you don't know even the history of that term substance. It was first used by philosophers, and then science got a hold of it later. So a substance is not something necessarily tied to science and something physical. It has a rich history of it, and for something to be a substance, there's certain views of substance, like identity through change, indivisibility, things of that nature.
Okay, and immaterial means?
Not physical, not material.
So, not a non-physical substance. So immaterial means non-physical. What does non-physical mean?
Something that's going to take more than the language of chemistry and physics to describe.
Okay.
Having properties beyond the physical.
Because so far as I know, nobody's ever defined what the hell this is. I mean, it's always something nebulous that you can never touch it. But my understanding is that a soul...
Why would you be able to touch something non-physical?
Right. I wouldn't assume such a thing. I wish you wouldn't imply that I had.
You just said it's something you can't touch. Well, of course.
Right. Of course. So I obviously didn't assume you could touch it. But your argument with the soul is that we have this thing that can't touch the physical universe, or maybe it can touch the physical universe. I don't know, because we never got a definition from you. So somehow this mystical, ghostly, whatever it is that remains undefined, exists inside us and apparently drives our bodies around. I mean, are we on the right track? I mean, do we need to define what a soul is before we argue about it?
Well, I did. I mean, I'm almost tempted to ask if you were paying attention to my opening. I did define what a soul was. I even had a slide for it.
You said a material substance.
That contains consciousness and animates the body.
Yeah, so basically it's the man behind the curtain pushing buttons and throwing levers, rather than the complex functions of the brain and biochemistry. It always has to boil down to man behind the curtain. But
because a brain function...
You're really just pushing the argument. You're pushing the argument back because what causes the soul to be able to think? If you discount that the brain can think, even when we can show how the brain actually does think, then you want to say that the soul is doing the thinking for the brain. Well, how does the soul do the thinking?
Okay, hold on. So you're saying that the brain can think. So I have no idea how we would show the brain thinks. So this gets into already something I said about first-person private access. I know it was a lot to go through, but if you're going to be doing a debate on this and you're not coming prepared to even at least have the basic terminology and knowledge of the arguments for the soul, then it's going to be really hard to kind of have a good discussion if I'm going to keep having to explain certain terminologies and concepts.